everyone, and welcome to Senior Susie Stamps. I'm glad you're here with me today. Last week I showed you this pack of paper and it had a bunch of scraps in it. And as I was putting it away and cleaning up from last week's video, you remember I made some of these little daisies to go on one of the cards. And so I had this little piece of paper left and I thought, well, I'll just throw that in the bin. And then I got to thinking about it and I thought, no, I believe I'll make a card out of that. And so today's video is going to be about using your punched out pieces to make card focals. And I think you'll like some of these cards that I've made. I got started on this, y'all, and I just couldn't quit. I was having so much fun with it. But at any rate, this is kind of the negative image. And then I frequently have used these little guys on the inside of the card. So let me show you the first one that I made. And this is some of the paper out of that paper pack. And you can see this is my little scrap of white, and I backed it with yellow. There's some little white pen work on the daisy on the inside here. The little black and white, and then another yellow piece. And then on the inside, I just put a little extra small daisy that I had another punch for and a strip of that paper. So I have a bunch more of these cards, and I'll show them to you at the end. But I thought we would start. I have this pile of scraps, and so I thought we would make at least one card today. And it kind of depends on how long the video goes. But let's just start with this one and see. This is part, I better move my coffee, hadn't I? Let me, hang on a minute. So I had a piece of this paper, and this kind of stuff, I never know what to do with these kind of papers at all. But I had a scrap here, and then I punched out this little flower that I was going to make, and then I had this piece left, and I thought, well, I can put that on a little white backer. And then I saw this little flower here, and I thought, well, I could make the center out of that piece right there if I'm real careful about how I glue it up, because see, there's a little bit of that showing up right there. So let's start right there and get this piece glued on just the way we want it. And I'm going to start by just gluing around the flower and then finding my little perfect spot for this. And I think about right. No, I got a little piece right here. Hang on. Maybe about right there. There we go. Okay, and now I can just trim this off, back away from the edge just a little bit so that it won't show. One of the nice things about using these little negative images is they'll use a bunch of scraps up for you. One thing, when you're punching, instead of, let me see, I may not have an example here, but instead of punching way up next to the edge, if you'll set your punch down just a little bit when you're starting to punch things, then you'll have enough material left to do something like this in the future. Now I think I'll glue this white piece onto the back just for a little border. And then we'll trim this piece off. And we'll have the makings of a really nice little card here. And it's entirely possible that I should cut that with a paper cutter because I didn't cut it straight. I never said I could cut straight. So, hang on just one little sec. There we go. Now I know that's going to look better. And one other thing that I found useful in these types of cards is to have my sentiment notebook handy. I was thinking I might put some foam up underneath this just to give it a little additional elevation. So let me get a card base, and I think I'll just use a top fold here, and I'm going to glue this piece down. And because these papers were curated together, I know that they will coordinate and be just fine. I had this green cardstock in my stash, and there's probably, I don't know, maybe 3 pieces of it. So it's a good way to use up a little colored cardstock as well. Looks like I didn't get my fold exactly perfect there. So let me see if I can trim that off just a touch. There we go. That wasn't much, was it? I'm sorry, I get a little particular sometimes. I think I'll wrap a little twine around that. Hang on, let me get some. And I'm going to use this real thin twine. I had pulled these little bows out. We may use those, and again, we may not. I'm not sure. But at any rate, I'm going to get a piece of regular tape. Be right back. This is the way I like to do my twine when I'm just doing a little wrap. And I just want to put a little piece of tape here on the back. Wrap it 4 or 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then I'll put another little piece of tape. This is permanent tape. It's not the repositionable. It's just your regular old Scotch tape. And then I trim that off. And then as I'm doing my foaming, I want to put just a little piece of foam on the bottom, and then your larger pieces of foam up on the top. And that helps to lift it up and clear this little bit of twine and get it kind of out of the way for us a little bit. And I think that's going to be plenty of foam for that. So here we are. So far, so good. And I'm thinking that that has gone by the wayside. So let me figure out some nice little tie here. I'll cut a piece of twine off, and I'm going to double that up, I think. And maybe I'll double it again. Let's try that and see just how it looks. I'll take my tweezers and pull that through that way. And then I'm going to tie it in a little knot and then pull my little ends here and trim them out. Just like that. And then I'll kind of spread them out after we get everything all tied down here. Now, I think I'll put that kind of a little off center that way. Let me look for sentiment first. You all have seen my notebook before, but in an application like this, it really shines. So I'm just looking for kind of a little sentiment that is generic, because I don't know what kind of card I'll need. But for right now, I think I'm just going to do a Thinking of You card. Right there. And actually, I don't like the color of that white paper with this white paper. So let me change. And we'll do a happy day to you. How about that? I think that'll look nice with that. All right. So maybe something along this line here. Let's try it and see what we get. I think I might need to shorten that up just a touch on my little trimmer here. Not much. There. I think that's fine. And this one's ready to glue down the outside pieces. And give us just a little bit of a nice border on this left side and a little bit more on the right side, just as a little bit of interest to make this card a little more asymmetrical. And then I'm going to put a little piece of foam up underneath this side over here. And some glue on this side. I could have backed this with green, but I couldn't have done it without cutting into another piece of green, so this is the way we're doing it today. And I'm just going to come right to the very edge here. There we are. And then on the inside, let me see what I have left here. Then I could pull, there's this piece and this little flower. I have a bigger piece of this. Let's try to use that little piece right there and see if it won't work on the inside, and use up this scrap. Maybe just tear this a little bit and trim the other end off. I don't know if you can hear her or not, but Cordelia is running around the studio. I think in another life she must have been a movie star. She's a crazy cat. So something like that. Maybe that's a little too much. Maybe we'll drag it over to the side here. Yeah, kind of like that. I don't like that torn edge though. Let's try again. Let's see if we can cut just a little more off like that. And maybe just take it like that. And here and there. I think that's going to be fine. We'll glue it down. Now on this one, I cut just a little piece of flower out of this scrap paper here with this old Petite Petals punch. And then I cut another little, I used my little round 3/8 inch circle punch and some black and a little bit of white pen, my little jelly roll here. And I crimped the edges like I showed y'all last week. And then I think we'll just kind of glue that one right in there like that. And this card will be ready for a few little gems, perhaps. Just like that. And a sweet little note inside. Happy day to you. And let me get some gems that will kind of go with this. I keep gems in these little old stamp cases. I never throw these away because they're so useful. And even though I may have pulled my stamps out of this, these are just wonderful for storing all kinds of stuff in. And I got my multicolored gems in this pack together. So I think we'll just put 3 little gems on here. Maybe here. And use the different sizes just for a little extra interest. And here. And then maybe one up here. And so a little card that started out with a scrap that you might just toss in the bin ends up being a very roadworthy card. Don't you think? Okay, well, there's number 1. And let's see, since we're only at about 15 minutes here, let's try to do another one with, let's do this pink this time. Oh, that's what I was trying to tell you. See, if you do your punches up close like that, there's no way you can really utilize something like that. So if you have a little scrap that you're punching on, perhaps it would be a better idea to punch it out a little further, like this one, for example, and then you can actually use the white piece as a card layer. So let's see what we have here that kind of coordinates. I'm not sure. Oh, I've got some sentiments pulled out here already. Let's see. Yeah, I think those will be enough to make another card, and then this pile here, I'll have to figure out something else as far as what to do with that. Let me see how big this piece is. I'm going to cut this down to maybe 3 3/4 by 5. And that'll give me a nice, did I do 3 3/4? Yeah, that'll give me a nice white border on this card. And there we go. And then we'll get a white card base. So here's our starting point now. There we go. And then we're going to use this white one, and I'm going to back it with a little bit of this color here, and I don't need much, so let me see. I think I'll just cut a little piece off, and we'll glue it the same way we did the other one. There we go. I think this one is just a little too wide for this small of an image. So I'm going to trim it down just a little bit. Maybe not too much. I think I'll make it 3 inches long, and I'll put this back in my white scrap bin to come out another day and play. So this is going to be 3 inches by 2 inches. There we go. And I have a little piece of yellow here. Let's see what we can work with that for maybe making a center for this flower. And there we are. I'll let that dry for just one little second. I think I'll take some corners off of this and maybe use this one. It'll make it a little less scrappy looking and more like a planned event. There we go. And so see, this is already starting to look a little more like a card. There we go. And I think we need a little something extra here. So let's just try this and see where it ends up now. I believe I'll put this up on some foam, and I'm going to glue this part down. Should be equal borders all the way around, because this was 3 3/4 by 5. Put some foam on this. Maybe like that. And then perhaps just a little strip of that coordinating paper and a sentiment. Okay, hang on. I'm going to put a little foam underneath this end here. And a little piece underneath that end there. And a little bit of glue in the middle. And we'll use this little scrap rather than putting it in the bin. You know, make a nice little bit of embellishment for this card. I'm going to set it down just a little bit. There we go. And then we can do our sentiment here. I might put this up on a little piece of foam also. There. And I'm going to put some gems on this. And I'm thinking maybe these gold ones would be pretty. I'm going to do a little white pen work on the center of this flower. It doesn't take much to just brighten something up a little bit. There we go. And then for the inside, let's just see. Maybe we could do a little opposite flower. And I think that's the last of that paper that I had, except for that larger piece that's here. I'm going to cut a little banner off of it. Doesn't have to be much. And that leaves me a nice usable piece here for another card, perhaps. And I think I'll dovetail the ends here. Bring this out. I'm going to pinch my little flowers for just a little bit of texture here. And glue it down. Put my center in it. And I think I'll put a little gem in that to pull, shoot, come here, to pull the inside, or to pull the outside to the inside that way. There we go. So there's a nice little inside treatment out of a little tiny scrap that really you didn't have much option for except to just either cut another flower out of or pitch it in the bin, one of the two. So let me show you the rest of these cards because I had so much fun making them. And I hope you'll try this the next time you punch out some flowers, or maybe you need to have a little day where you can punch some things and put in your flower stock and you'll remember what I did with the inside and the outside of these cards. So here we go. This is the other one that we made, and the very first one that I made. And then I made another yellow one. Now, you can tell the white is based on this, so the yellow back behind is just the layer of cardstock. This came from this card, and I double layered the centers here with a little piece of foam between. I had a little piece of scrap black paper here, which really just tied this together beautifully. And then all I did was to put another flower on the inside, and I didn't have any more of this black paper, or I probably would have put a little bit of that in. This is a birthday label that I did a couple, 3 years ago. It's been in my stash, and really I was having trouble trying to figure out how to use it, and it worked perfectly with this card. And this is what I did on the inside of that one. I went back and added just this little piece of scrap yellow just for a little extra on that. This one doesn't have any gems on it, but honestly I'm not sure it needs any, especially with this stripy paper. Now here's another one very similar to this one, except I put a piece of pattern paper on top of the base layer, but I didn't have a piece that would go with this one, so it went without. But it's the same thing. I wrapped a little twine around it, and here's the flower on the inside, and it uses the same punch there, and then it pulls it together on the inside. Here's another one. This is a little different punch. That's this one, which I imagine a lot of you probably have in your stash, along with this punch. Just a basic Thinking of You card. I used my designer paper and punched through it. And then this is the punch that came out of that. I mounted it up on a circle and did another one of the little punches on top of that for a nice little inside treatment. Here's another one using this color scheme. I had a little bow that I tied, and here's my negative image, and then my little punch with the smaller perfect petals, or something, petite petals, I think. And here's the inside treatment. I pulled this together with the little gems, and it just works that way. And then there's this one that's another black and white and solid color, and I had this little piece punched out that I found, and I stamped a little flower on a plain piece of white scrap paper, did my little tie around, put my little black gems on, and then I did a little inside treatment with this little tiny scrap of paper that I had left. So, and there they all are. So I hope you've enjoyed seeing this today, and it maybe has given you a little inspiration for using up some of your scraps. And really, I have very little left to use, and so I'm tickled about that, because I'll get them used up and that paper put away. And let me know what you think. Tell me if you had a favorite. I would struggle to have one myself, but it might be this very first one that I did, because I thought it was so much fun to start the process. But y'all have a great week, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye, everybody.